I actually hit the buttons right for a change. It's bases dropped for another round of soccer down here. Thursday thoughts on a Thursday power hour. We're good until 10:05 since we started at 9:05 as we always do in Turner time. And obviously, the big thing that we'll talk about this morning is the USMNT roster was announced. We've had another couple of nations that have mentioned their rosters as well. England has mentioned theirs. No Ivan Toney that was supposed to be a part of it from a lot of folks. So no Ivan Toney, no Joe Gomez, no Mark Gahey, no Ward Prowse, no Ruben Loftus-Cheek, no Tyrone Mings, Ben Chilwell, Reece James are injured. James Madison, Callum Wilson, Ben White, Connor Gallagher. They are a happy 1 a.m. Friday, Bam. And so that's the greatest hits on your England roster. Bart Keeler will come in with the golden ticket, and he will drop in whenever he feels like, because traditionally Bart's a 9:30 guy. But because of the importance of the USMNT, I said doors open whenever. So whenever Bart can get away from the real world and drop in, he'll drop in, and he'll hang with us until 10:05. A couple of other things this morning that came across the wires. Yesterday, I know that we were looking for some team news for Atlanta United, and we got some team news from Atlanta United. Brooks Lennon signs for another couple of seasons, and that's a very cool piece of news for one of the best right backs in Major League Soccer, that he's going to continue to be a part of Atlanta United going forward. And the other piece of news that I wanted to drop in, and I don't know if any of you guys got to see it. Aloha, Nix. Good morning. Huntsville City. Now, I know that there was no real imagination in the team name, Huntsville City Football Club. They're up and running, and they had their big reveal last night of crests and colors and things like that. And so if you've missed the display that they put out, the announcement that they put up on social media about the stadium with their mock-up there and all of that kind of stuff, remember that Huntsville is tied to Nashville SC. So our friends at AL.com, after the announcement last night, Scott Turner, Ian Ayre was in Huntsville last night and said the names of animals and such things aren't typical for the sport of soccer, and that they wanted to go with something more traditional, felt the name resonated well. It's the city's club, something different, really wanted to go with the name for that reason, simple and authentic. And they unveiled the team name, crest, and colors at the Von Braun Center Mars Music Hall last night. So Ian Ayre is going to be president of the new Huntsville Soccer Club as a part of MLS Next Pro. And quoting President Charles Altschek, thinks it represents what may be one of the best kept secrets in this part of the country about the city of Huntsville. Well, if Mr. President, we've been talking about Huntsville for a while. That it's got folks from all over the world who've come in through their jobs or for whatever reason, other reason, know the sport, love the sport, see that in the youth participation numbers and the number of club teams that are already playing there, it's only going to multiply now with Huntsville City FC coming online. The logo, you can go to AL.com or go to their website, and it draws inspiration from the city and the seal and the space industry, home to the Marshall Space Flight Center, Missile Defense Agency, Army Space and Rocket Command. And so that announcement came last night. Next Pro's team's primary and secondary colors, blue and white, while gold and skyline blue serve as accent colors. So we have tracked down, and Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle, this was very cool, first person to purchase season tickets. So we are in the process of tracking down our friends at Huntsville City. We will catch up with them and get their story, get the lay of the land. And there you go. Nix is heading there next week for early Thanksgiving with the family. So Nix, check and see if you can figure out where the gear is available. But yeah, Bam from here, geographically from Atlanta, Georgia. Nix, what is it, about a 4-hour drive? Because it's 2.5 to Birmingham, one state over, and then probably another 90 minutes up north. So basically you're going northwest, Bam, from Atlanta, about 4 hours. And so, yeah. So Bam drops the first shot from Australia in the overnight. They'll have a stadium for NYCFC does. They actually have it. They actually have their own stadium, Bam, It is a renovated baseball facility. It's a baseball field that hosted other things, and so they're renovating it. And so the mock-ups are there on their website with all of their pretty pictures and things like that. But it's a stadium that's being renovated, and it was primarily for baseball, and so they're expanding it, and it's going to go like down one side. If you were thinking like down the third base side in a renovated baseball stadium. No, I think it's only for the team because the current minor league team is there. They play in a separate facility, if I remember my math correctly. So yeah, until I-24, you could not. You couldn't go to HSV from here. But very cool stuff from Huntsville last night. So Huntsville's on the board in MLS Next Pro. They're attached to Nashville SC, and so once again, soccer continues to grow here in the footprint. Not a surprise, considering what we've known about the South and the Southeast for quite some time. So very, very cool stuff out of Huntsville last night. And so obviously we're tracking them down, and we'll have them for a 1v1, hopefully in very short order. Obviously, biggest talking points today are the men's national team. And yeah, because of the lack of a stadium, Bam, I imagine. But NYCFC down to MLS Next Pro, put Huntsville straight in Major League Soccer. There he goes. You already got Pro Rel working. All right. Men's national team. I'm just going to go ahead and lay it out. It's like, all right, whatever you guys want to talk about when it comes to the men's national team, go for it. Because that's what the balance of this hour is for. Even though the stuff about Brooks Lennon and the stuff about Huntsville was our opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. For those of you watching on Twitch, there's your QR code, and you can dive right into all of your experiences with Kickoff Coffee right there. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. Thank you to everybody who has used the code SoccerDownHere15. Get you 15% off of your coffee, and they in turn take 10% and invest it in the youth game and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com, Kickoff Coffee CO on Facebook, on Instagram, and on the Twitters. So I guess the Brooks Lennon stuff and the Huntsville City stuff, that was our opening kickoff. All right, here we go. Men's national team, whatever you guys want to talk about. Like I said, Bart Keeler is going to dive in when he can free himself from real-world responsibilities and come and talk about this. Keepers, Horvath, Sean Johnson, Matt Turner, no Zach Steffen. And we always thought that Zach Steffen was kind of the one that was tied to Greg Berhalter. Said that conversations he had with players to tell them they weren't going to Qatar were very difficult. Me and Zach go way back. Zach's been there for me a bunch of times to tell him he's not going to be a part of the World Cup team was heartbreaking. He wouldn't go into what went from Steffen being the number one in 2021 to not being one of the three keepers, even after he moved to Middlesbrough on loan from Manchester City to get regular playing time. And once again, this is from our friends at Soccer America. Berhalter says, I think it's more about who we do have and the comfort level with the guys that are on the roster. We really felt really comfortable with Matt, with Ethan, with Sean. That's the direction we decided to go. Outside backs. Dest, Shaq Moore, and that'll be a talking point for keeper will be a talking point with Bart. Outside back will be a talking point with Bart. And speaking of Bart, wasting no time. See, he just drops right in. 15 minutes early from the real world, Bart Keeler. So I start the discussion. You must have had your SDH radar on. The second that I got out of the opening kickoff and mentioned Huntsville City and mentioned the contract extension for Brooks Lennon, I start going right into the roster, and all of a sudden you pop up. And for those who have not had the chance to listen, I would recommend catching EP45 of the Soccer for US pod as Bart and Caleb break everything down for the 2 weeks to go when it comes to – and I'm trying to work the promo here. Talking hashtag USMNT and anything else on – if I could type else on his mind. Man, it's like, fat fingers and everything are just destroying the keyboard here. Catch the conversation. See, this is what happens when you're trying to promote live on the air. I know it doesn't make for really good radio, but you're trying to promote the fact that someone is on and they know what they're talking about. And sadly enough, you have to make sure that all of the things are in line. So okay, so Bart has been.
Well, let me filibuster for a second and talk about
actually,
how
I got it typed. We're good. All right, so let's just go from 30,000 feet before we go into position groups. 30,000-foot view of this roster. What do you think?
there were some surprises on this roster.
Yes, there were.
I think that's the biggest thing is this was way different than I think anyone anticipated from Greg. I think we all kind of felt that there were about 20 to 23 guys that we pretty much all agreed on that were going to be a part of this roster, based on what we saw from Greg during qualifying, who, pretty much had, as he kept calling it, the group. And so we kind of figured that group, those core players, would be a part of this roster. We felt that there would be a couple that had played themselves in. I think Josh Sargent is the best example of that, of a guy who played himself back into the roster. But it wasn't what we predicted.
No.
I still think that if you look at spots 1 through 23, I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think if you have to go any farther than that, I'm a little concerned.
Okay.
But I do think that this roster shows where we have strengths and weaknesses overall in the pool. And we can get into that when we talk a little bit more about each position group.
Right. So I was just diving into keeper, and literally it's Horvath, Johnson, Turner, Zach Steffen, Noah Aki.
I don't know why. I talked about this. I'll have a podcast coming to you today.
Excellent.
With a full roster breakdown with a guy named US Keeper. He's really well known on Twitter. I did a episode with him earlier. He's known for his historical USMNT kits and crests, and just stats in general. He's got like spreadsheets upon spreadsheets upon crosstabs of it, and he's obviously a keeper. And he and I were kind of a little bit confused why Steffen wasn't there. But the only thing we can kind of really think of is Matt Turner is the number one. Greg Berhalter obviously said they're leaning toward Matt. Obviously that he indicated there's a slight injury issue, but
right.
I think it's very clear that Matt Turner is the number one goalkeeper for the U.S. in this tournament. And I just don't know if that was because, maybe Zach Steffen didn't want to come if he wasn't going to be the starter. I think that might be really what did it. Because I don't think that Horvath or Johnson are necessarily better than Zach Steffen. I don't think that the four that we could mention are separating themselves a lot in any way.
Right.
But I think it is clear to me that Matt Turner is your number one. So I guess at that point, I think we all thought Johnson was going to come the whole time just because of hey, thanks for your service type of nod. And he's obviously a capable goalkeeper who I think we should feel comfortable with. But yeah, it's very interesting that Zach Steffen wasn't there. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing because, again, I think Matt Turner was your starter all along. At least personally, I still think Matt Turner is the better actual goalkeeper. So, you just hope that he's going to be there the whole time.
Right. And the injury issue for me with Steffen was the thing that was always lingering in the back of my mind. I'm glad that Sean Johnson got the nod considering how insane he was at points for NYCFC.
Yeah.
And we know that Ethan Horvath is one of those guys that he's a plug and play. If you need him in a pinch, he has been there in the past. And he is, to me, he's a 2. He's a 2 or a 3 in this discussion.
Yeah.
He is not a number 1 where we've seen Matt Turner and we've seen Sean Johnson, take 2. Sean Johnson as a part of this discussion. So I think that those 3, considering that Zach, I mean, if Zach comes down to the notion of, well, if I'm not number 1, I'm not coming, that's disappointing to hear. If you're outside and that is in fact the case.
Yeah, and it's hard to make heads or tails of exactly what Greg Berhalter said yesterday about some things because we know that he's not going to outright slander a guy out in the media. So he's trying to play it correctly. It's also very possible that he just rates Horvath and Johnson over Steffen right now.
Right. And that's what we're. Yeah,
It's possible.
yeah, it could very well. I mean, things change, and you get closer to a key situation, and you perhaps either analyze / overanalyze or try to read the room and figure out. You're trying to play Vulcan chess with yourself. Oh, what's the mug this
Yeah.
morning, by the way?
Oh, it's we're starting the holidays off. We've got
Okay.
Santa.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Not even Thanksgiving, and he's already breaking out the Christmas mug. All right.
Listen, I'm not saying that Mariah Carey's already been played, but things have been sung. I already made one trip to Dollar Tree for like $50 worth of Christmas decor. So
And well, there's that, and then there's also the white elephant gifts for all of the parties that
right.
D. Graham, since we're talking keepers, he's fine with Stefan missing out. He's not been in good form for me. Horvath is the 3, but should have been Gabriel Slonina.
I disagree with Slonina. I understand everyone likes Gabby Slonina, and I'm not even trying to like dismiss him as a good goalkeeper, but I think at the end of the day, you do know it's not eggnog in my cup. Not yet. I do think that Gabby Slonina is the future, but I've said it on here. I've said it on my own podcast on Soccer for Us. He is not even next cycle's future,
Right.
because all of these guys that we're talking about, the 3 of the 4 will still be around for next cycle.
Mm-hmm.
He may play himself into that because obviously he's about to go to Chelsea, and who knows where that actually leads him. I don't know if he'll be part of the Chelsea loan army. We haven't heard that he would be. We actually kind of heard that he'll be part of Chelsea. He might still be with the U20 or U21s for Chelsea. We're not quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, he has every opportunity to play himself up into 2026. I don't think he's done anything in MLS to be considered better than Sean Johnson, or done anything in MLS to show that he's better than either Stefan or Horvath. And he certainly hasn't done anything to prove he's better than Turner. It's fine he's not here. He's 19 years old. He will get plenty of opportunities once that calendar turns to 2023 and we start looking at 2026. Although I still want to say to everyone, pump the brakes, because we will still have Matt Turner, Zach Steffen, and Ethan Horvath for the next cycle. Sean Johnson's the only one that's going away. And even then, it's because he's 33. And I know personally, as a 33-year-old,
yes,
that my knees hurt after a night of goalkeeping. So, it is very possible he may not be part of the mix very much longer. But, I mean, Brad Guzan was going to be part of the World Cup cycle in 2018, and he was a little bit over the hill. So it's very unlikely that he even starts looking at being a part of the U.S. men's national team picture until 2026, period. So just be patient with Slonina. We don't have to push every single young guy into the mix just because we had a missing generation where we had to push other young guys in there. It's okay that a goalkeeper at 19 isn't getting looks at the U.S. men's national team. It's okay.
Yes. And, 19 plus 4 is 23, 19 plus 8 is 27. So it's not like you're
right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like you're 408 years old if you miss the cycle here domestically. All right. Next position group, outside backs. Dest, Anthony Robinson, Joe Scally, DeAndre Yedlin, and yes, I held the 5th name back on purpose because that was one of the big surprises for me. Shaq Moore.
Yeah, you cannot deny the power of Georgia soccer.
Yeah, man.
That's what it comes down to. Powder Spring Zone, Shaq Moore. I think that I do think the Shaq Moore inclusion is a bit of a surprise. And I'm not saying because I don't think he's good,
right,
because I do think that after Serginho Dest, really after Joe Scally, the rest of the guys at that right back position are kind of the same to some extent.
Yeah.
I will say that Shaq Moore, to me, is similar to Reggie Cannon. They don't really have anything that necessarily is that different, but Shaq Moore's a little bit better going forward. So that's obviously what Greg Berhalter likes to do with his fullbacks. He also has a slight ability. I'm not saying it's like robust, but he does have the ability to play left back, which seems to be the case of you have Anthony Robinson, who's your left back, and then you have 4 right backs who can also play left back.
Check.
So I think that was kind of Berhalter's thought process. I'm a little, I still thought it was going to be Cannon because Cannon can play center back, which would have given you a 5th center back option as well as a 4th right back option. I thought Yedlin was going to come all along. He's at this point the only guy who's played in a World Cup before.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brooks isn't going to be a part of it. Um, it was a little shocking that Shaq Moore was included, but I think it's just because we kind of had all just assumed that Cannon was going to be there. I don't think there's any real quality difference between Reggie Cannon, Shaq Moore, and even DeAndre Yedlin. They all have ups and downs. They all have pros and cons, but they're all similar. And really, to be quite honest, they're not starting over Dest.
No.
If Dest is healthy, they're not playing.
Quoting 3GB, from what we've seen, but what we've been seeing with Shaq and observing over the years, he's got a great mentality. He's a relentless player. He's been grinding out his career and doing it in a way that he had to rely on his 1v1 defending. And we think that in the World Cup, particularly on the left side of the field for opponents,
Yep.
They've got good 1v1 players. We think he's a guy that can help us in that role, end quote.
Yeah, and that's the best explanation of why he chose him. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's significantly better than Reggie Cannon's, but, I think that Shaq holds his own a little bit better than Reggie, but Reggie, I think, fits better into an actual system. It just, it comes down to splitting hairs at that point.
Center back, we got 4 of them. CCV, and Jared, I imagine, very pleased about that. Aaron Long, Tim Ream makes it. Walker Zimmerman makes it. CCV, Aaron Long, Tim Ream, Walker Zimmerman are your 4.
So the first 3 that we were expecting, right? We expected Zimmerman, we expected CCV. Kind of, I think especially once we knew that Miles Robinson wasn't going to go, I think CCV played himself into that.
Right.
Definitely expected, unfortunately, Aaron Long, who I will again reiterate was not good in MLS this season. I don't care what you say. He just wasn't great in MLS this season, and he hasn't been great since coming back from his Achilles injury. Tim Ream is both a shock, but also not, because here's the reality of the situation. Chris Richards, we found out earlier this week, and probably found out last week, really, that he wasn't going to be going to the World Cup, which sucks. Birmingham, Alabama's Chris Richards not going to the World Cup is a really unfortunate thing for that kid, first off, but also for the team, right? It sucks for him that he gets clearly just a nagging injury, something that he hasn't been able to fully recover from a couple months ago and can't get healthy for the World Cup. It sucks for the U.S. because I think there's no doubt that Chris Richards was going to be your starter next to Walker Zimmerman. I think you look at how they played in qualifying, that's valid. But the other thing is, and we all know this very much here in Atlanta, we're missing 2 of our top 3 center backs at the U.S. level because Miles Robinson is out.
Yep.
Right. So if you're missing Miles Robinson and Chris Richards too, in my opinion, we're probably the 2 best center backs. But Walker Zimmerman's like maybe 2B. Like they're 2 of the 3. We saw them throughout qualifying, rotating in and out. Once you knew that Richards wasn't coming, you had to find someone who I think at the end of the day, you just trust, right? I don't think that Greg trusts Mark McKenzie the way that he feels comfortable enough to take him to a World Cup. I don't think he trusts Eric Palmer Brown. He clearly doesn't trust John Brooks. So Tim Ream it is. He does skew the age of this roster by like 8 years. It's not even fun. Like if you would have included anyone other than Tim Ream, this roster still would have been like under 25, basically, his average age. But Tim Ream, he's 34. Maybe Greg just wanted someone a little closer in age to him. That was the reason.
I need a contemporary to hang out with me.
Right. I need someone who understands some 90s references, please. But it was once you looked at the injury situations, I think it's a no-brainer that you include Tim Ream. It also would not surprise me one bit of Tim Ream starting.
Yeah.
He has played lights out. I say lights out. He's played very well in the Premier League for Fulham, who may be overachieving this year in the Premier League.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say, but not by a lot. I think they are a very good team. They've finally figured out that you cannot just keep things the same from Championship to Premier League.
You can't just sit there and make Alexander Mitrovic try to be your guy and score a goal for you.
So I think that has definitely shown that he's capable of playing at a very high level still. There's a report from Berhalter that came out when he did his appearance on Football Americas yesterday that Pep Guardiola told Tim Ream that if he were 30 or 24 instead of 34, he would be playing for Manchester City. And, you know, I think we've all seen Tim Ream's quality throughout the years. It just, once you look at the injury situation and you see where Tim Ream can fit in this roster, it makes sense. I am a little surprised there's only 4 center backs, to be a little honest.
Yeah.
Again, that's where I thought Reggie Cannon would come in, because he can slide in as either a right center back, or he has played fully center back for Boavista this year. But yeah, I absurd would be 44 again. Wow. I thought you were at least 25. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
There you go.
But yeah, I think Tim Ream, it's good for him. He's had a long career. He deserves it. You know, it's good to see him, and I do feel better about him now than I did a year ago, watching him getting cooked by Linez on the goal in the Nations League final.
Yeah, and apparently Ream also said to Pep, "Well, you know, dude, I'm 35, not 34."
Yeah, exactly.
Numbers right now for Tim Ream in the Premier League. He is 70th percent in shot creating actions in the Prem, top half in passes attempted and completion and dribbles completed. Defensive numbers, top 10% in the Premier League in blocks. Right.
Yeah.
So, and top half in picks. Top 40% in clearances, those kinds of things. He was top 10% in a lot of numbers. I think he was top 10% in the championship last year in interceptions as well. So,
I mean, you look at, again, he's playing in the English Premier League, which is the league of 2 of the 3 teams who are going to be playing in this World Cup. You know, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he can body up against Harry Kane, but he at least has experience doing it. You know, it's not like he's going to be afraid of these guys.
No. And especially, you know, in a World Cup situation, you need dudes who are going to wander into a situation, not be intimidated by their surroundings.
And you can just slip him. If Walker Zimmerman needs a break, you just slip Tim Ream on, and no one knows that they're different, so you don't have to use a sub. So you're good. They look the same.
Except for the hair tie, maybe.
Yeah.
You got to work the hair.
They do have hair ties in different spots. Yeah. No, that's true.
All right. So midfielders, we got 7. So we got a little bit of room to talk about here. Major Leagues United has 2 representations. Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams. You've got Kellen Acosta, who we figured would be a part of the discussion with 3GB. Luca De La Torre, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, and Christian Roldan. And I put Roldan at the bottom for obvious purposes.
Yeah, I'll start at the top. Obviously, Adams and Acosta as your defense. Well, I guess at the bottom. Adams and Acosta were for sure your defensive midfielders. Acosta, you want to talk about guys who can play left back, can deputize as a left back if needed. So, you know, he's on here for a lot of good reasons. We saw him score an MLS Cup final. Don't get too crazy. That was not like he scored directly from a free kick. It still had to go through some people, but like he has that ability. There's also no one else that like screams, "I'm the backup number 6," so that's fine. Tyler Adams playing fantastically for Leeds this season, really at a very high level. So he's a no duh. The others, though, you know, obviously, I think you have introduced a new midfielder, because we've seen Brendan Aronson play in the midfield for Greg a couple of times. If you remember, he started this World Cup cycle playing in the midfield at El Salvador, because you had Gio Reyna on the right side. Obviously played that kind of central attacking role in the midfield in the summer friendlies. So we've seen it, but he's always been included as an attacker. So interesting that he is now being fully listed as midfielder. I do think that's the best space for him to operate, but obviously we know he can play on the wing. That's fine. McKennie and Musa, though, I think we had as locked in starters. I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore, because Aronson, got to be quite honest, is playing better than McKennie is right now. Part of that is because McKennie is just, that's how he is as a player. If he gets hot, he gets cold. He's also been injured a little bit. So, you know, I think that definitely, that puts a little bit of a wrinkle into what I would see as my starting lineup. Luca De La Torre, Greg said he probably won't be 100% fit by Wales. I'm still okay with including him. I don't think there's anyone else who could back up the possession style midfielder like Musa, anyone better than De La Torre. And I don't think he'll start anyway. So if he can't go 90, I'm okay with that, you know, because he wasn't going to go 90 in my opinion.
Right.
And if you needed that, then I think you're looking at like Aronson and McKinney starting, not De La Torre starting anyway. I don't think De La Torre was going to start.
Right.
So the midfield six are really good. I think that the six midfielders we have are pretty strong. They're about what we expected. Really glad to see all six of these midfielders.
so Christian Roldan hit me. Came off the bench, helped the
Oh, no,
US.
he's here. He's the team manager. That's what he's here for.
Yeah. Was part of the rally for the 4-1 win over Honduras, 80 minutes in qualifying.
No, he wasn't.
Let's see. Possibility, and this is once again from Paul Kennedy over at Soccer America, possibility of making the World Cup seem to have ended when he missed 6 weeks after undergoing groin surgery in late August. And I'm going to save the omissions for the later part of the discussion here. But yeah, Christian Roldan hit me.
I will say I'm a little surprised he's included because of that that groin injury he had earlier this season, which did keep him out for the rest of the MLS season.
Right.
I just look.
Okay.
Obviously, he is the best liked player on this team, and that goes a long way, right? It's good to have guys who are well liked. It's good that he is respected by the coaching staff. It's good that he's respected by the players he plays with. It's really good that he works really hard in training. It's really cool that he, sets the tone of like going into a practice intensely.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a good international player. Like the numbers back this up. More than 30 international appearances. He has a grand total of 1 assist.
Okay.
In a position that's job is to create offensive moments. He's never once looked good outside of a Gold Cup appearance where he lofted in a Hail Mary cross to a guy running in on the back post who just happened to be there and head it home. It was a great, fun, exciting moment, but at the end of the day, that is not indicative of World Cup level soccer. And I'm just sorry, he's not good enough at the international level to warrant a spot on this roster. He's just not. There are other guys, I'm not even talking midfielders, there are other guys you could have brought in who could have, you could have brought a fifth center back, right? You could have brought Mark McKenzie. You could have brought Pepe or Pifak, a fourth striker. You could have brought another winger. You could have brought Georgi Mihailovic, who he refuses to call up. You could have brought Johnny Cardoso, who provides you a little bit more tactical flexibility. He's not good at the international level. And I'm not trying to say that he's a bad human. Like, you can say this dude is awesome. He's a great person. Clearly everyone loves him. He is not good for the U.S. men's national team. He never has been, and he has had plenty of opportunities to prove to us that he can be, and he just hasn't proved it on the field.
So then, all right, Burns got a couple of points. I want to get into this, but let me play devil's advocate here for you. When it comes to a roster that is as young as this one is, save 74-year-old Tim Ream, the idea of having a glue guy like a Christian Roldan on a 26-man.
There aren't 25 other glue guys on this roster. You have Tim frickin' Weah. You have DeAndre Yedlin. Like, you have Tyler Adams. Like, that I get what you're saying here, John, but like, there's 25 other players on this roster that none of them can serve as a glue guy, as a guy who, you still have frickin' Jordan Morris. Like, and he doesn't add any valuable experience. What the hell has he done? He hasn't gone to a World Cup.
Just wanted
Sorry.
I know.
It's a fair devil's advocate point or opposing point, but it's just, there are other guys on this roster who we've heard, are like Walker Zimmerman seems to be very well liked. I don't get it. There's no on-field reason why he should be on this roster at all. Like, he doesn't have any positive qualities when it comes to playing, right? So if your answer is, oh, well, he's a good locker room presence, I will give you that.
Okay.
There are 25 other guys in this roster. There's not a single other guy who's good at being a good person.
Like I said, I just wanted to bring that up to have you defend your life in this James Brooks version of the USMNT as we all look at the chart. All right, so Burned is in. Don't like Adams and McKinney in the same midfield because they're both not great with the ball. I'd rather have only one ball winner and two who can play.
I think that is fair that they are not as good on the ball. I think that's a totally fair comment. But I think we've seen that the best midfield we can play is still Adams, McKinney, Musa. Now, I will say that if you drop Musa and Adams as kind of more of a double pivot and put Aronson in front of them, and maybe even McKinney or Gio Reyna even. Now, that's interesting. We haven't done that a whole lot. We did it in the summer friendlies against Morocco and Uruguay, and it looked pretty decent. So, I think that might be something we experiment with a little bit, especially against a team like Wales or Iran, who are going to be so attack minded. Having a guy up front whose sole job is to partner with the striker or partner with the wingers might be an interesting kind of, give us a diamond up top, or one guy floating might be interesting. But McKinney, Musa, Adams has proven to be our most consistent and productive midfield throughout qualifying. So I get what you're saying, but it kind of works. I also think that Musa provides a lot of the ball progression that you need. I don't want to have to rely on him to just dribble past guys, but he can. But McKinney is still, man, the dude can find a pass. He can find a shot. He does a lot of creative stuff that no one else in our midfielders group can really do. So I still think that's your best starting options is McKinney, Musa, Adams.
Pointer count to that comes from D. Graham. The expected midfield trio of Musa, McKinney, Adams don't work together. While Adams is a locked-on starter, I think you can only go with one of Musa or McKinney.
I mean, I get it. I'm not saying you can't. We just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen it on occasion. We've seen Aronson as a lone attacking midfielder with two guys behind him. I agree though that so we saw in the Canada game at home that we couldn't progress the ball very well with Tyler Adams as your central midfielder. But who was playing alongside of him? Kellen Acosta and Sebastian Lletget. So is that an Adams problem? No. It just continually, I've seen it throughout qualifying. McKinney, Musa, and Adams was our best midfield trio. Now, again, I'll concede that if you reconfigure things, it might work. But we even tried Aronson as a central midfielder alongside McKinney, and it didn't work all that effectively. I think it could be better. I think Aronson himself has grown phenomenally as a player since September 2021. But I'm not going to tell you why it works. It just does, because it does, and it has worked throughout qualifying.
Because sometimes, you can't describe why something happens. It just does, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but you can go, yeah, that works. I don't know why, but it just does.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. Now, I do think that a lone attacking midfielder probably works better with the wingers that we have, because we have, outside of Tim Weah, all of our wingers are going to try to cut in, right? Pulisic likes to come inside. Reyna likes to operate in those half spaces. Even Morris likes to come inside once he gets the ball, right? He stays wide and then cuts in. So having a lone high attacker does leave more room in those half spaces, the space 2 and 4 when you're looking at the 5 across the field.
Okay.
So that's possible, but because we have seen where Pulisic and McKinney kind of fight each other for similar spaces on the field. That's fair, but we just haven't seen a double pivot attacking midfield much from Berhalter. But I think, and what I've seen from a lot of U.S. soccer pundits and people who cover the game similar to I do, we'd like to see it because we think that the opportunity is there for us to try it and be successful. So I'm just saying that McKinney, Musa, Adams has been the preferred. It's been the most successful. That doesn't mean that we can't see Musa, Adams trio or duo in the back with either McKinney or Aronson or Reyna as a lone attacking midfielder.
Wingers, we got 4. Jordan Morris, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Tim Weah. speaking specifically, like I said, I want to leave the snubs to the tail. Jordan Morris, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Tim Weah. What do you think?
So I think, again, when you dropped Aronson into the midfield, that probably allowed you to bring Jordan Morris, but I think Morris was probably coming anyway, especially once we heard that Areola was hurt.
Right.
Look, I don't know if I'm ready to trust Jordan Morris at the World Cup level, but I will at least give him credit that in nearly 50 appearances, he has 11 goals for the U.S. and he has found himself scoring in important times for us. So everything I said about Wadon, I still think is true about Morris. I don't know if he's necessarily great at the international level, especially at this level, right? He's done really well in Gold Cups and in CONCACAF, but when it comes to playing the big boys, I don't know if I trust him.
You've got international with a lowercase I and then international with an uppercase I.
You've got World Cup and you've got CONCACAF. We got to be real honest about that, right?
Capital letters, World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has a history of scoring, and so I'm okay with that. But he hasn't been the same player since coming back from his ACL, which sucks. But you look at the other three, Pulisic, Reyna, Weah we have to rely on them to create a lot of magic during this tournament, and I think they all have it in them.
Mm-hmm.
I am super excited. I still think, and I know everyone loves Gio Reyna, and I'm not even trying to say that I still think Weah is your starter. I do, because he gives you better balance on the field, and he definitely gives you more of that verticality that Berhalter talks about. And he was super effective in qualifying, getting down the right side, whipping and crosses. And hopefully one of our strikers will get there. But I also like Gio Reyna coming off the bench or being able to be used in a lot of positional areas. He's much more tactically versatile than Weah. Weah is a right winger. Don't even try to tell me that he's a fullback, because he's not. But Reyna can play right. He can play on the left. He can play centrally. So I think if you're looking at a guy who you could keep on the bench and bring out when you need some attacking spark, I would rather have Reyna coming off the bench in that regard than Weah. But Pulisic is your guy. I need him to realize that he's playing as a part of a team, not by himself out there. Mm-hmm. Because when he tries to make it all happen for himself, he ends up, trying to do too much, throwing our positions and our shape off, and clogging up a lot of areas on the field. If he can stay wide, be patient, wait for the ball to get to him, and then to make the magic happen, I think that's how we're gonna be successful.
All right. So Byrne is back in, says if you're going to play against the ball, press or drop and counter, then McKennie and Adams work well. If you want to play with the ball, I'd rather see somebody more ball secure than McKennie ahead of Adams and Musa. Reyna would be great if he is healthy enough.
No, I understand your point, Byrne. Like 100%. I'm just saying that McKennie, Musa, Adams has been what we've seen, even when we've been playing more possession style against teams that are more likely to give us the ball. So I'm not arguing that it will be better. I'm just saying that we haven't seen it. And so I can't say that it's the definitive way to go. And theoretically, yes, I agree with you. But in practice, we just haven't seen it, and it's hard to judge that.
Random point from Rich Ransom. Tim Weah will be playing in the World Cup at the same time his dad is president of a country.
Yeah, that is fun. That is cool. And good for Tim, man. Like, I felt bad for Tim earlier in the cycle because he had so much promise, and I was so excited about him when that 2018 year came and he finally got his looks and he was playing really well, scores against France, like all that. And then he just kind of battled injury after injury after injury. And he never really got his feet under him at PSG. He's doing good things at Lille, has a league title under his belt. I'm very happy for Tim. I very much enjoy Tim Weah on the field. He's a very much more of even in the modern times, he's more of a traditional winger, but still with that modern ability to do guys one-on-one and cut inside. I'm very excited to watch Tim Weah go up against any of the back lines we have to face in this group.
All right, center forward, your last position group before we get into the snubs and perfect 11s and things like that. Ferreira, Sargent, Haji Wright. And for those that were watching other networks other than the one that was breaking down and having the announcement, there were certain pundits that were having Class A conniptions about Haji Wright being mentioned and a part of the roster at center forward.
I think it's a valid response because we saw in June that game in El Salvador in the Nations League. We got a bot in the chat, by the way.
Bot? No, we can't have
Yeah.
bots. That's bad.
We heard and saw against El Salvador in Nations League in June that Haji didn't have a good game. I think most fans looked at it and said, yeah, of course the striker didn't have a good game. We were playing in a mud pit, in El Salvador. But Greg was very critical of him. And again, Greg doesn't criticize players openly very much at all. I think he leaves that to personal interactions or like in front of the team, right? He criticized Haji like harshly.
Yeah.
And so I think it is a little shocking that he's included in this roster. I do think that when you look at form, he's scored 9 goals so far in the Turkish league. I don't necessarily rate the Turkish league very high, but he is scoring. But you compare that to a guy like Pepe. Pepe's been scoring and assisting a lot in the Dutch league now that he's at Groningen. I think that Ferreira and Sargent are your two best and in-form strikers. I think Sargent has, even though he's playing more on the right wing, when he's played centrally, he's looked good. He's looked good on the right wing. Finally playing on a Norwich team that is like at the level they should be playing at. But it's just curious. Now, I will say, I like the fact that Greg brought in a guy who is the plan B option.
Mm-hmm.
Ferreira and Sargent are very much this is the way we want to play. They fit our system best. Haji doesn't necessarily fit the system the way that Ferreira and even more so Sargent fit the system. But in a World Cup where you don't have time to either A, call in other players because you want to, or B, you don't have time to hope it works out, right? Like this, even within a 14 match qualifying campaign, you can kind of be like, okay, look, we can give it a little bit of time. We'll make up some points. No, you have 3 matches to get it right.
Yeah.
So if things aren't going well, you need to have a plan B option. And clearly Haji is that plan B option. He's taller, stronger, physical type of forward. But the thing that I think separates him over Pfak, who is the other guy who is in that discussion, right? The more direct style of forward, is Haji has a history of making things happen on his own. Pfak does need service, right? I mean, we've seen that in the Bundesliga. He started off hot, but though Union Berlin is still doing very well, Pfak doesn't get a lot of touches per game, which Greg probably looks at and says that's not going to work with our system, even if we're going direct.
Right.
So Haji is a little bit more involved in the attack. He's a little bit better at creating offense on his own. He can get a ball and dribble on guys. So I think ultimately that's why he went out. Now, Pepe being not included is still a shock to me. Again, I think you could have dropped one of your 4 right backs for Pepe. You could have dropped Roldan for Pepe. He's playing very well. And I think it's very shocking that Greg Berhalter left him off. I really do. Because I think the stat was he had 3 goals in qualifying and he didn't make the final roster. That's the most anyone scored in qualifying and not make the final roster. Yes, he had a very long period of poor form, but he's found it. And it sucks. I hate that for him, but he's also 19. There's opportunity for this man going forward. There's opportunities for him both at the national team level and hopefully in Europe to continue to grow his career. So my advice to Pepe would be, yes, it sucks now, but you have a bright future ahead of you. And you're only 19. You have at least 10 more years, hopefully, of a career ahead of you to make a name for yourself. And I believe you will.
Jordan may be a little more physical, said Berhalter, but Haji has pace. He's got the ability to go 1v1. He's got finishing with his head, both feet, and he's performing really well in the Turkish league. Let's not forget that the starting striker for Belgium, Fenerbahce's Michy Batshuayi, also plays in the Turkish league and has 5 goals. Haji has 9. And the Belgium guy's probably playing for a better team also. This is not an easy league to score goals in, and he's doing a good job.
And I mean, Greg just told you right there why Haji's up there. And hopefully Haji comes in and performs well in camp and puts pressure on Sargent and Ferreira to be your starter. Because I do think, I think when we look at Ferreira, I don't think Ferreira is going to be the guy to unlock as a striker the defenses of Wales, England, and Iran. I just don't. Unless he dribbles at at Harry Maguire, and we'll be good.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of folks would say, do that. Dribble at Maguire. You got it covered.
Kick the ball at Harry. This is the game plan for the U.S. against England. Kick the ball at Harry Maguire, and just eventually you're going to get a goal.
That's going to happen. That's going to be on Black Friday.
But no, I think Haji does. Haji is a little bit more, and that's kind of why we were confused why he wasn't called up a little bit earlier, because I think when PFOC was in the Swiss league, it was very I don't think there's much difference between Turkey and the Swiss league, right? I don't think that you can separate those two very much at all. So it's a little confusing why Haji didn't get a call up before. Also, we talk about glue guys. You talked about that with Rodon.
Yeah.
Haji Wright is very well liked by a lot of those mid-20 guys, right? McKinney, Pulisic, he played with them in the younger days. So I think that might have something to do with it as well.
Yes.
So yeah, yes, please be healthy. Seeing some of the lineups yesterday, I was like, no, why are we playing? Why is Pulisic starting now? Don't start him. Weirdly, Arsenal got knocked out of the EFL Cup yesterday, and I was like, well, that means none of our guys have to worry about good. No one got hurt. We're good. Darn, we lost to Brighton in the NFL Cup. Who cares?
Put them in bubble wrap. Put them in bubble wrap, bro.
I don't. As much as I don't want England to do well, but I don't need Bukayo Saka getting hurt. You know?
No.
So, at this point, we're all trying to stay healthy. Glad Turner didn't have to. He didn't play yesterday, but glad he can just rest a little bit more, and we'll be fine.
Snubs. No PFOC, no Pepe, no Areola. Obviously, injuries played into that.
Yeah.
So snubs. What were some of your bigger snubs in this run?
Well, I think Stefan is the big. You mentioned Pepe. I think he's the biggest snub because of how much he produced in qualifying, how much he played in qualifying, and then B, how good he's been recently. I think Stefan's your next snub because he started 8 of the 14 games in qualifying.
Yeah.
Even while not being in good form and barely playing at Man City, So now that it's weird that form matters now, but it never mattered during qualifying.
It matters when you say it matters, Bart. Come on.
I know. Because I still don't believe that Stefan is worse than Horvath or Johnson. I'm not prepared to make that statement. I think Turner is your best option, your number one, but I don't think Stefan is worse than Horvath or Johnson. It's very curious that he was not called up. That's the biggest snub in my opinion, because the other ones, even Pepe, I think you can look at it and go, okay, Greg saw Sargent and Ferreira as his option A strikers. And he saw that he needed a plan B striker, the oh crap, this isn't working striker.
Yeah.
And he felt that Haji Wright fits that mold best. Now, I still think that you could have left Christian Roldan at home. His total, we don't need his total of 1 assist in 32 matches. We don't need that. Pepe, in his limit in 1 year with the national team, has created much more excitement and offense than Roldan has in his entire career. So I think it's still a little valid to criticize Greg for not bringing Ricardo Pepe. And I think that there was space on this roster when you look at the fact that there are 26 roster spots. You could have brought him in.
So Rich wants to know if you can put alternates on the plane.
So I can't confirm this reporting by any stretch, but my friend Thomas, U.S. keeper, who he'll be on the podcast that I'll drop later today. He mentioned that he had asked people hey, are there going to be alternates flying on the plane to Qatar? And he was told no. So to answer your question, Rich, yes, in theory they can. It seems like U.S. won't do that because remember, we can replace a player if they're injured up to 24 hours before our game against Wales. So we have until Sunday the 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern to replace a guy if they're injured.
Fly commercial.
Right.
Get the Concorde.
So at that point, I do think you would be looking at European-based players. So Pepe could be a guy. Cannon could be a guy. So I think that's possible. But it is unfortunate that no one will be kind of coming as alternates, but I do think that Greg's looking at the fact that we've got 26 players. Well, there's 3 alternates right now because I still think the match day squad is still 23. So
Yeah.
you're always going to have 3 guys left off. And the likelihood you use all, like, you're not going to use all 23 guys on your bench anyway because you only get 5 subs. So you're looking at 16 total players you're using during a game. That's 7 players you're not using on the bench on a match day squad, plus the 3 that you're not going to bring to the match day squad. So I think Greg feels comfortable with the amount of people. So I think the answer is the alternates are already coming on the plane. That's Rodon, Morris, and I don't know, another dude.
Yeah.
Maybe Shaq. I don't know.
Does do you start Gio Reyna in all 3 considering his health issues?
No, I'm telling you, I still think Tim Weah is your starter. I really do. I think we have seen how good Tim Weah is at getting behind players. Now, that said, I fully think that if you're telling me that Wales and Iran are going to bunker, if that's what you think is going to happen, then sure, Gio needs to start because Tim is your get behind guy. I mean, he's still good at 1v1, don't get me wrong. But Gio's probably better at that type of a game of needing to break down a more compact defense. But I still think Tim Weah is good at that. I just think that Gio gives you that a little bit more. But no, I don't think Gio's your starter in all 3 games. I think the only guy who's starting all 3 games, I think 3 in my opinion. 4. Well, 4 with Turner. 4, Matt Turner. Mm-hmm. Walker Zimmerman, I think, is a starter all 4 games.
Yeah.
Anthony Robinson's your starter all 4 games if he's healthy. Mm-hmm. Tyler Adams all 4 games, and I think Christian Pulisic's the other one. I think you just start Christian all 3 games. Excuse me.
What about Aronson?
No, I don't think Aronson's your starter all 3 games at all. Okay. I think McKinney, and Musa might rotate a little bit, just depending again on what the team is playing. I think Gio and Tim kind of rotate a little bit, and I don't think you can say that a striker is your starter all 3 games because I don't think any of these strikers has proven to be your number 1. You know.
And so then
Dest might be your starter all 3 games, but I don't even know if that's true. I don't know.
Okay. So then, in a perfect world, all things being equal, what is your ideal starting 11?
Yeah. Turner in goal.
Turner, Robinson, Zimmerman.
For this roster?
Yeah, for this roster. Yeah. Your ideal starting 11.
Yeah. So Turner,
Robinson, Zimmerman.
Robinson, CCV, Zimmerman.
Okay.
Dest.
Okay.
Right. Adams, McKinney, Musa. Mm-hmm. And then your front is Pulisic, Sargent, Weah.
Okay. So you've got Sargent over Ferreira. In your ideal.
I think Sargent is a better striker than Jesus Ferreira. I do.
Okay. You realize, of course, sir, that when it comes to this international competition, you're going to be very, very busy with your.
I am going to be busy.
Well, with your golden ticket here, you're going to be very, very busy.
I'm going to be busy. I've got obviously we've got Wales coming up on the 21st, 2 Mondays from now. I'll be hosting a World Cup watch party at Fido Midtown. Come watch with AO Atlanta. We'll have some drink and food specials. We've got obviously the big match on Friday, Black Friday, November 25th. I don't know if you saw, we changed from Wild Leap. Unfortunately, they had some construction delays that they can't control because shipping is still a problem. Somehow they have things like, I mean this sincerely, this is not their fault. They have things that are like almost 20 weeks late on timelines that are not anywhere either them or their construction team. So it sucks. We're at Wild Heaven for that one. So you're probably familiar, if you're a soccer fan in Atlanta, you probably are familiar with Wild Heaven's West End Brewery and Gardens. We'll be there in the garden room, as well as the just overall complex will be there. Monday night will be open. ASW will be like the whole complex is open. Come party with us. We'll be watching on the projector screens inside of Wild Heaven, as well as TVs on the outside. So come join us there for Black Friday. Get all your shopping done, or don't. But definitely come and escape your family for a couple hours on that Friday. Yep. And then Tuesday, the 29th, we'll be at Fido Midtown for the Iran game, the final group game. To be determined where we are for knockout games. Probably Fido is the most likely situation, but who knows? You know, it depends on when we play and who we play. But hope to see y'all out. Obviously, we'll be podcasting throughout the entire thing. And Don't forget, women play today against Germany. Some important matches coming up for them against a very good team, the European finalists and 2-time world champion Germany. Played them today at 7 and then Sunday at 5. And obviously we'll be at Fido Midtown for those if you want to come watch. Important games for Vlatko. October was not a good month for Vlatko Andonovski and this team. They've got to bounce back and they've got to show that they can make changes. I think that's the most important thing I'm looking for tonight, is just that you recognize that things weren't working well and you tried to fix them. That's all I'm asking for. Sometimes it doesn't always work well, and that's fine. The World Cup is not tomorrow. The World Cup is in July.
Yes. Have you secured your access to?
No, I did not get tickets. I did not get tickets to the U.S. lottery. I have spent more than $800 on U.S. soccer tickets in the past 4 years since 2019, and I did not get picked. And I'm so mad, so mad. Like, I mean, I don't think it'll be hard to get tickets on the secondary market or get tickets from resale from U.S. fans who end up not going, but none. And I applied for all 3 of the group matches and the quarterfinal. Not a ticket. Not happy, John. Not happy about that.
All right, so cut the on-air promo, all of the podcasty stuff that you're doing that is going to be coming up in short order.
Yeah, so we'll I'm finishing up editing that podcast. I'll have it to you soon. But we'll have a roster reaction episode on Soccer for Us featuring Caleb Cook at USMNT Corner, and then Thomas, US Keeper. And we'll be podcasting throughout the tournament. We'll have probably more reactions and previews, but we'll have one big major tournament preview coming out the weekend before. And yeah, if it's if you want to listen, it'll be on feed. So, you don't have to subscribe to anything different. It comes right on the feed that you're already subscribing to, Soccer Down Here. Make sure you follow the podcast at Soccer for Us Pod. And hope to see y'all at any of the events that we have coming.
that guy right there. Bart always does tremendous work with the Soccer for Us, and we are happy to have him as a part of the SDH fam. And I mentioned that you're going to be busy with your golden ticket, especially with all of this international competition stuff that's coming up. So yeah, you may as well just clear your calendar.
Yeah, every morning.
I'm not joking, brother. Every morning at 9:30.
I know you're not. You're going to be just as busy, man. You've got high school playoffs coming up and everything. So
I've heard those.
Yeah, you're going to see. We're going to have some pretending he has COVID.
It's all good, brother. Once again, thanks for hanging out, especially in environs that are not local. As you're balancing your real world and this world. So get back to the real world, get back to editing, and obviously we'll flip EP46 coming up in just a little bit. Bart Keeler at Bartimus Prime 19 at Soccer for USPOD. Get your breakfast, my friend. We'll catch up soon.
See y'all. Be good.
Bart Keeler. So there he goes. Okay, so Abby mentioned the coat, sock, and blanket drive at the Black Friday match. Okay, so coat, socks, and blankets. It is that time of year. And I don't know if I know that Nick's, when I always have my third monitor up and I'm watching weather coverage, he'll sit there and he'll look at what's going on this monitor too. I'm looking at Central Florida right now television. I've got the Weather Channel on over there because of everything else that's going on right now and how it impacts all of us. So just keep your warmest thoughts and vibes and love for everybody down there in Florida right now with Nicole, because Nicole is inland and she's about ready to make that pull hook golf swing and sit there and work her way through Grady County and the southern parts of the state of Georgia before she works her way up the coast. So just keep the warmest thoughts and vibes for everybody who has been affected, who will be affected with Nicole, because she is really, really pounding Florida, and especially after Ian, this is the last thing that they needed. So great to have Bart on for an extended period this morning. Since he mentioned it, we'll get into the Soccer for TV. He mentioned the international friendly that's on FS1 tonight, and that's at 7 o'clock. ESPN Deportes has your doubleheader in La Liga. Rayo Vallecano, Celta de Vigo at 1, Real Madrid, Cadiz at 3:30. Gummy Bear Cup is at 2:55. Manchester United, Aston Villa. They've got the Eredivisie with Feyenoord at 2. La Liga Santander, they've got matches 12:50, 1:53, 20. College men's action. The Metro Atlantic Athletic Tournament I'm trying to see, Rich, if your Ryder Broncos are in it. No, they are not, at least not on the television section. You've got that at noon. You've got the Horizon at 1 and 4. You've got the American at 4, the Big East at 4, Missouri Valley at 4, the Summit at 4, America East at 6, Big East at 6:30, ACC, the AAC, sorry, that's the Americans at 7, America East is at 7, Missouri Valley at 7, Summit's at 7, and then wrapping up your Paramount Plus, the Brasileiro at 6, doubleheader there, Serie A 12:30, 2:45, Hellas Verona, Juve, Lazio, and Monza. Yes, wind advisory until Friday at 7. Rain from Nicole cometh, and we don't like that. All right, so juice boxes really quickly for those of you who are locked into this when it comes to the matches that are already in progress. You work your way through. There's a lot of club friendlies that are going on. You've got the Eastern European action going on here in the morning, working your way more toward Middle Europe and Western Europe as you go. Really light day. You've got Valencia Betis. Valencia is a favorite at home at 2 o'clock, 2:45. Lazio, a big favorite at home as Monza visits EFL Cup. Manchester United's a -132. Real Madrid, obviously a big favorite with Cadiz visiting. Serie A in Brazil. Catch that on our friends at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here if you haven't subscribed to Fanatis yet. I was watching Palmeiras last night on that AstroTurf that they have at home. Atletico Mineiro, big favorite at home with Cuiabá. Botafogo, a favorite at home against Santos. Your juice boxes for the women's friendly at 7 o'clock. U.S. is a +118. Germany's a +213. Your draw is a +223. Bernd, you mentioned what you think is going to go down there. We'll talk about that in a sec. Jamaica and Paraguay's at 8. Jamaica's on the minus side at a -102. So, Bernd, you think that Germany will test a few fringe players from what you've read. Players and coaches weren't too happy about the long trip. But they said they're going to get a home against the women's national team in the return. So looking forward to all of that. So that's your Power Hour plus 7 minutes because we got Bart Keeler coming to hang out with us to break everything down. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us on a Thursday for the Power Hour. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 9:05. We'll catch up with whoever wins the toss from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring with Greg Garza, Michael Parkhurst. We'll talk about that. Get you ready for the weekend at 9:05. Jarrett will rejoin 10:05. We'll carry you through everything else that's going on the weekend. Very, very busy stuff across the board. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us as you always do here on Twitch and also on the podcast form if you miss us live every single morning. We'll be back at it again tomorrow at 9:05. And since it is the end of the show, mucho plata, y'all, and that means I get to do this. We'll catch up with you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. Stay dry. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.